This Lil Baby beat down below is what we're gonna be making in GarageBand iOS today. So I'll be going through tips and tricks that you can implement to get that Lil Baby vibe and groove. In this channel, I make GarageBand iOS tutorials. So if you want to improve your GarageBand iOS music production, then start now by subscribing. So let's dive straight into it. Lil Baby has a lot of emotional and melodic type piano melodies in his songs, and a perfect instrument to complement that, I think, would be the classical grand piano. And since we've got that, let's start making the melody. If you don't already know, chords are a great way to make a nice sounding melody. So let's get the D minor chord, D, F and A. I've set the tempo to 119 to give it that slow Lil Baby groove. So let's have a simple chord progression, just D, E and C, just something really simple. I'll move this down to here, just 3 chords. Let's get the chords in. The E minor chord would be E, G and B, but since we're in the D minor scale, this would go back to a B flat. The last chord would be a C. This should be a simple C major. So this should be our chord progression at the moment. Let's make a slight arpeggio out of these chords. So a little syncopation, just moving it across the side a little bit. So since this space is a little empty, I'm gonna put the same chord but a slightly different variation of the notes. So just start off over here and with the same type of syncopation as well. Actually, I'm gonna change it up a little bit just to give it a little bit of variation. Now what you can do is copy the bass notes down 2 octaves. That gives it a deeper and darker vibe and feel. Now let's lay a counter melody on top of this. This melody has quite a syncopated groove that I like so far. Let's continue with that. Let's start off with a dominant chord, a dominant note of this chord, which is A for the D minor scale. I like that so far. Let's do something like this. Utilizing these semitones. Let's go back up to D, to the next octave of D. So I put these little rolls down here. Yeah, I like that so far. Let me just put one more note. Actually, I like that so far. I'm liking the way it's sounding, so I'm just gonna copy that into the next bar and change a few things. Let's have a little bit of syncopation in here with the last chord, so I know that this is a C major scale, so let's have the C major chord going up. It feels a little empty in this space over here, so I'm gonna take these 2 bass notes and make it a little bit different. I'm gonna put one more chord in here just to make it a little bit more interesting. This is the piano melody for the minute, but for the drums, I'm gonna show you a hi-hat trick that you can use to make your hi-hats a lot better, but I'm gonna do that in a minute, so stick around for that. After all of this, I don't want to make a full counter melody, but just something real quick, just like a pad or some strings. I'm gonna layer only the chords on top so that it doesn't become too muddy or messy. This painting strings is the plugin I'm gonna be using for the moment. Just gonna copy over everything and just delete the top notes. So I just did that, and I adjusted the lengths of these a little bit just so that it doesn't overlap too much and make a little bit of a mess. Hi-hats are really important while making a Lil Baby type beat. So for this, I don't want a simple 2-step hi-hat pattern. I want a load of stutters and messes with the pitches and everything going on there to make it a little bit more interesting and to give it variation. So this is just a simple 2-step hi-hat pattern, but I'm just gonna do what I feel, mess around with the pitches and see what I like and come up with it. I'm gonna have a little roll down here. So the trick with the hi-hats is to play around with the pitches of the hi-hats. A lot of people just have rolls in their hi-hats but don't mess around with the pitches, so it sounds very monotone. So let's mess around with the pitches and make it very interesting. Let's have a 16th note to start off the second bar. I'll copy this over to give it a slightly different rhythm for the second bar now. Let's skip off the first hi-hat for the third bar, just for a little drop. I've done this in my previous video as well. Just a little triplet note here as well, just for the last bar. So this is a hi-hat pattern I have at the moment. Have a lot of rolls, have a lot of stutters, have a lot of drops in there, and mess around with the pitches especially. I'm also going to show you an 808 trick real soon on how to get that short but hard-hitting spins 808 in GarageBand. But this is the 808 pattern I have for the moment. Stay a little bit to figure out how to get the 808s. Simple clap every 3 counts. Let's get this simple king clap. Just really quickly, let me add in a snare to give it a little bit of more groove. Let's get the snare 4 just in some simple places. In the classic places where the snare goes. I'm just gonna put it in these places and have a real quick open hat, but this time I really do want the open hat to play only once every 8 bars, just to add to the beat a little bit. Now let's go on to add the 808s. You don't want an 808 that's really long, but you don't want something that's really short either. You want something in between. Not a lot of 808s have that, so I've got this really short lettuce 808. It's a really short tail, so something like this. But to make it a bit longer, I just added some unconventional effects. I just added an echo in there, just to make it seem a little bit longer. Now let's come up with the 808 pattern. Then we have a syncopated rhythm for the groove of the beat, just for the start. Add one in here as well, adjusting it a little bit. Just a little roll to start off the 3rd bar. Actually, I'm gonna lift this up to the root notes of the chord progression. For the last 2 notes, I pitched it down to C because that's the chord progression. I'm just gonna layer this on top with a kick pattern just for a little bit of variation. So this is the kick pattern I've got for the moment. Not exactly with the 808s, but just to give it a little bit of variation. And the last instrument for this beat is gonna be a mini crash that's gonna be played along with the kick. So just as an open hat or crash should be played with a kick to give it an even more punch. So I just got the crash over here, so it sounds like this. I'm just gonna layer it with the kick in a few places. Since I don't want to play the whole beat, because since you already get an idea of what the beat sounds like, I'm just gonna arrange it into the intro, hook, and the first part of the verse. Actually, one last instrument I want is a sub bass, just to give the intro a more deep sense, because right now it just seems a little too plain. For this, literally, I'm just gonna put down the root notes. So it was D, E, and C. Little roll up here, just to bring it back to the E again. This. That sounds a lot better, so I'm just gonna mix the beat and show you the final outcome.